What really haunted James Dean? Because his was a life that burned bright, but also burned out at a rather young age. So, in today's video, we're going to be exploring what energies linger in James Dean's soul story. Let's find out. Hello, I'm Faye, and I am a psychic, an intuitive, and a medium, and this is Solar Flow, my little slice on the internet, and a channel where clarity meets intuition and psychic insights cut through illusion, and where we decode energy and uncover the deeper truths that are shaping the world around us. Now, before we get into the psychic energy read on James Dean, I'm first going to start by sharing some basic three-dimensional information about him that was acquired off of his Wikipedia page. So here we go. James Byron Dean, who was born on February 8th, 1931, and who had crossed out of his body on September 30th, 1955, was an American actor. He became one of the most influential figures in Hollywood in the 1950s, despite a career that lasted only 5 short years. However, in those 5 short years, his impact on cinema and popular culture, at least according to his Wikipedia page, was profound, even though he only appeared in just 3 major films: Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden, and Giant. He was killed in a car accident at the age of 24 in 1955, leaving a lasting symbol of rebellion, youthful defiance, and a restless spirit. So let's now explore if, in fact, that symbol of rebellion, youthful defiance, and restless spirit remains even on the other side. As soon as I had connected to James Dean's energy, he gave me a look that surely would have made millions of hearts skip a beat when seeing him on the big screen during his heyday. But this is not his heyday. And I tell him, no offense, but I'm actually into the energy of the living and not the deceased. Nothing against his soul or anything, but I also point out he is a little before my time, so perhaps I cannot fully appreciate this brooding, smoldering vibe that he's trying to transmit to me. So he just sighs, dejected, and he looks around and he tells me, this place is a dump. Now here's the thing. One might hear that and think he was making some sort of a negative claim about my domain. But I remind you, as an energy reader, I'm not actually connecting with his energy here in my home and in my space, but I'm connecting with that portion of his soul that is residing with God in energetic escrow on the other side. So essentially what James Dean was telling me is where God resides on the other side with all of those divine beings is a dump. He tells me it's not just the other side. It's primarily the other side, but it's actually also the earthly domain too, which is why he resists coming back here. And that's why it took me so long to track his energy down. Because homeboy has been on my list for a hella long time, and he has resisted coming in. And he tells me it's because this place is a dump, and he does not come back here all that much. So I ask him why. Why does he perceive the earthly domain to be a dump and one that is not deserving of him to come around all that much? So he tells me he was in fact a bit of a tortured soul. He also has concluded that he had too much attention. He had way too much, way too soon, and once he was out of his body, he could no longer stand to be around this place, could no longer stand to not be a someone like he had been when he was alive. Because he shared with me, once he was out of his body, no one cared who he was in this last, most recent lifetime with the name James Dean. So therefore, he prefers to be far, far away from the earthly domain where nobody knows him anyway. So according to him, the sting of not being known does not hit him quite so hard. So essentially what James Dean is saying is, now that he's out of his body and he's on the other side, he doesn't want to go to the cosmic bar equivalent of Cheers, where everybody knows your name. No. He wants to go to the opposite of Cheers, where nobody knows his name. Because if he was in Cheers, the bar on the TV show, and he wasn't getting adequate attention from the people there, that would sting him. So better go to a bar, a cosmic afterlife bar, where nobody knows him, because then if nobody knows him, it can't sting him that he's not getting enough attention. So essentially, better get no attention than a little bit of attention, because a little bit of attention to him wasn't enough attention. And he also tells me, because otherwise, this whole being a nobody on the other side when he used to be a heartbreaking somebody is a salt that stings his cut up soul just a little bit too much. So James Dean is sharing this with me, and I basically conclude he's a broody bastard. To which he tips his head, like so, in acknowledgement to me and my correct assessment of him. And quite frankly, had he been alive, and these were the sentiments of what his soul was sharing with me, I myself might come to the conclusion that James Dean is a narcissist, if he was alive. Because he's a broody bastard, because he's not getting enough attention, plus he is unhappy with anything and everything, and thus he withdraws his attention if he can't be in control of everything and anything, and certainly not the amount of attention that he himself receives. So viewing him this way makes me conclude that this is in fact actually nothing new for his soul at all, but is in fact some sort of a carryover of the personality that he had in this lifetime where he had the name James Dean, or it's certainly an indication of some level of a strong attachment that he had because he had attention and because he was an actor. So essentially, James Dean is not just a broody bastard on the other side once he's out of his body, but because James Dean, in fact, always was a broody bastard, so he wasn't playing a broody bastard in movies. And also, a broody bastard with a body on screen that reads like a heartthrob is in fact very different and translates totally differently than a broody without a body bitch who's just miserable energy to be around. And all of this makes me question Has James Dean spent any time on the other side in the afterlife bazaar? Because as I have shared with you guys, once we are out of our body and we're on the other side, there's a whole afterlife bazaar with all of these cool different booths that our soul can go and spend time in. So there's a booth where you can go and you can see your life like it's a movie, but it's without any of the emotional attachment to the avatar that is essentially playing you. So it's kind of the version of the song in spirit form, "Now You're Just Somebody That I Used to Know." Because you're watching yourself, but it's not really you any longer. So there's no attachment to the emotions and the experiences of what that person had gone through. There's also a booth where you can see your various different soul contracts and soul lessons and what you agreed to come here to learn and experience, what you came here to experience vis-a-vis another person. You can also spend time with God. You can be healed by God. There's also like a cosmic library where you can go, where you can learn all of the various different mysteries of the universe. So yeah, it's a bit of a cosmic afterlife bazaar. And it makes me wonder, has James Dean spent any time in any of them? Did James Dean take a moment to observe his life as if it was a movie? Well, no. Has James Dean spent any time learning about his various different soul contracts and soul lessons? No. Did James Dean spend any amount of time in the cosmic library immersing himself in the mysteries of the universe? No. Did James Dean even spend any time with God on the other side? Well, also no. So I ask him, why? Why did you not even spend a moment with God on the other side? To which he tells me, in the eyes of God, he wasn't special. Because in the eyes of God, we are all special. Because we are all God's children. So God doesn't play favorites and single out here this soul that in his most recent lifetime went by the name James Dean and was an actor. So because he was an actor in Hollywood, his soul somehow has more inherent value or meaning to me, God? No, it wasn't like that. So because James Dean's soul was not special and recognized as being truly special in the eyes of God, that somehow was an affront to him. And therefore, his soul had decided to withdraw from God, from the entire afterlife bazaar, and from the earthly domain as well, because he wasn't recognized as having some sort of a special status that perceived his own special status. So he withdrew because he had felt that while he was alive and he was an actor, he had somehow earned special status, and his soul was insulted that that special status didn't carry over to the other side. And therefore, he was not even interested in being around here any longer. So his soul basically booked it and got the fuck out of here. So James Dean coming in and telling me this afterlife place is a dump is not actually an indication of what it's like at all, but it's an indication of the way in which James Dean's soul perceives the other side, through the limited vantage point of his rather underdeveloped and immature soul. And because James Dean has an underdeveloped and immature soul, it makes me think it's probably, in fact, a good thing that his soul doesn't spend any amount of time around here, lest he ever feel called to incarnate again. And this would be him incarnating without doing any of the afterlife work that causes the soul to grow and expand, because we have the opportunity to unpack what our soul has learned, what we've experienced. We have the opportunity to refine and rewrite the script of what our soul chooses to experience in the next lifetime that we agree to come into. So perhaps if his soul spent any amount of time around here, he would be seduced and feel like this is a great idea. Let me just pop back into another body and be reborn, but without doing the necessary work to grow. Thus, his soul would continue to remain underdeveloped and immature. And then, thus, would continue to come in being underdeveloped and immature and perhaps even a bit of a bitch to be around. And because this is his energy, I choose to disconnect from it and be in it no longer. So that concludes the energy reading into the broody bastard known as James Dean. You guys can let me know down in the comments if his energy is what you thought it would be or completely diametrically opposed. This is also where I'm going to remind you, take what resonates, leave the rest behind. And as always, and certainly until next time, stay in that high vibration so you yourself won't be a moody, broody bitch.